Well, hi everyone, and welcome to Ask and Wonder, a show that brings Christians and skeptics together to talk about the biggest questions in life. Today, it is a special show because we have Elliott Martin. He's an atheist. He's a great thinker and friend. He was actually he's actually a listener of the show, and it was very interesting that he contacted me just to tell me that he was liking the show and he would like to engage with me with conversation. And I thought, yeah, of course, that is the key of the show, just to bring people together and have conversations about the big questions in life. So I'm very excited, and today's topic is an atheist wonders about life, and I'm going to be interviewing Elliott about this. So Elliott, how's everything for you?
Oh man, great. Excited to be here. Yeah, just to reiterate the point that you just said, Pedro, I was just a fan. I just stumbled onto the channel. I started watching. And a lot of times at the end of your videos, you throw out the gauntlet, you throw out the challenge. If you have a thought on this, if we mess something up, if we got something totally right and you like it, you hate it, say something, and that's what keeps the conversation going, and that's really what I'm here for, man. We've had some fun back and forths already, and I think this will be fun for us at the very least. So
Definitely, definitely. This is going to be fun. And I'm sure that people are starting to notice that uh, definitely you told me we could refer to you as an atheist, but of course atheism is just a strand of a very rich worldview. It says a little bit about who you are, but not everything, definitely. I would say that happens
absolutely,
the same when you say, "Oh, I'm a Christian." Well, that says
yeah,
something about a little bit of one's life, but not everything. But well,
absolutely.
Elliott, I'm very excited to have you here. And before we go into the conversation, I'm very excited about this. Just wanted to remind people that yeah, this is the show, and you'll see in the description more details as to how to connect to it. We have other shows. I'm excited to let you know that I'm going to be interviewing some more Christian and skeptic thinkers coming up. And if you're interested also in listening to this show, you can do it on a podcast version. You can find it on iTunes. And of course, you go to the search bar and you type Ask Amonda and you'll find us. Okay. And if you have any questions, definitely you can email us at askambondanashville@gmail.com. I'll leave all this information below in the description of the video as well. So, Elliott, an atheist wonders about life. I'll be
Every
honest with
so
you.
often.
Let me tell you something very interesting, Elliott. You know that the word, sorry, well, yeah, the verb to wonder is
Mhm.
a verb that exists in Spanish, but not with the kind of the same connotation. There's no
Yeah,
word in Spanish that actually encompasses that huge perspective
yeah.
of what that verb entails in English. And when I learned it, I loved it, man. That's why it's part of the name of the show. So
Definitely. And oh, just on that real quick. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of times when you watch videos like this, you get, 5 or 6 minutes of somebody explaining a word that seems to be so basic, like wonder, right?
yeah,
We
yeah,
all we all know what wonder is,
yeah.
and yet the particular context that you're using it has a particular definition, and it's important to make sure that you're talking about that. And
Yeah.
exactly, man. I mean, a lot of times these words we say have a lot of meaning, man, and we got to
Yeah,
figure out what they mean.
yeah, I agree with you. So, Elliot, I would like to start with the same question that I always start my interview. So, you're now an atheist. Have you always been an atheist, or there was a time in your life in which you were, a religious person, Christian, Buddhist, or something?
Yeah, so I was raised as a Methodist,
Hmm.
and particularly interesting story along those lines. So generally, at least in the churches that I was a part of, the baptism happened at a very young age. It was few months old to a year. It was very rare that it was a 2 or 3 year old child even. But I actually came down with a particularly strong illness when I was young, and I was in the ICU for a few months.
Mm.
That actually prevented my parents from getting me baptized right then. So as I grew up in the church, somewhere I want to say it was 8 was when I actually decided I would like to get baptized myself. So I actually made that decision, which is probably more along the lines of a Southern Baptist or something, but that's all right.
Yeah.
So I did that, and then I believe we started confirmation, which is a particular process, becoming more a part of the church and learning more about the faith and taking on responsibilities of the church and so forth. And it was somewhere around then that I started not really being as enthralled with it, I guess is just a good way to say it. Just it wasn't something that mattered as much to me, and I just kind of put it on a back burner for many years.
Mm.
I still went to my church to participate in various forms of music. I've done a lot of things. I'm most trained as a drummer, but even then, I'd say my skills aren't phenomenal. but with that, I often played music, and just kind of sat there, didn't really listen, didn't really participate, all that good stuff. It probably wasn't until the age of 18 or 19 when I really started looking into stuff, regarding theology and religion specifically. Over the years preceding, I had, kind of dabbled here and there with philosophy every now and then, and thought I understood stuff, and continued down certain routes. But when I was 18, 19ish, that was really when I started looking into the specifics. Hey, the global flood, or what does it say about the 7 days,
Yeah.
or all the main talking points that
Yeah.
you often hear. It wasn't until a few years ago that I really started getting into the more intense arguments, the logical foundations, the Kalam cosmological, however you feel about either of these things,
Yeah.
they're often talked about, and they're dense. Talk about some explanation, but
Yeah, those arguments are as dense as you want them to be.
yeah, they can be. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's kind of my story. And then really over the past, just over the past few years, I've been just trying to consume as much as I can. I mean, honestly, right before we got on this chat, I was catching up on Aaron Ra's videos where he's going through the Quran, surah by surah, which is really interesting. And he's always got, a few guys on there, and they break it down and they talk about stuff. And it just, all of this stuff interests me, whether it's Hinduism, whether it's Judaism, whether it's Zoroastrianism.
Yeah.
Every one of these has something interesting to it, and it's great to just look at it. In my opinion, whether or not I believe it is a different story.
So, Elliot, let me ask you a question, and of course, this ties up perfectly with the topic. So, I see that there's wonder in your life, and you started to wonder about things, actually, when you were very young about it. What would you say, Elliot, was uh, one of the main things that you saw with respect to the existence of God in this particular case, that you thought, this is not, I think this probably is not the way it is. I think God
Yeah.
does.
Okay. Yeah, I get where you're going there. I guess there was I know I think I'd said this previous in our back and forths. There was when I was kind of just randomly dabbling into various philosophy,
Hmm.
there was a huge notion in a lot of them that the arguments and the conclusions that we got to didn't really require anything else. There was no, it was kind of like when I was learning, when I was just dabbling in calculus. I'm definitely no mathematician. but when I started dabbling into that, it was kind of like, oh wow, I really don't need anything else. I'm just going to do the derivative of this, and just go through it. Now, granted, you need that framework. What is the derivative and what is cosine? We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
But even just delving very basically, I thought, I didn't see a lot of necessity for anything extra. And it wasn't just a God. It was even this idea that, there's this connection in the universe, or stones have power, or a lot of these things.
Yeah.
It didn't feel to me that was a needed part. A sufficient answer, fantastic. I mean, I could always say, oh well, yeah, I could just get to this by doing this with the rose quartz and the lavender and the whatever. But it always seemed like I could get there in other ways as well. And for me, it was the right path to simply say, okay, let's keep looking at those. Now, granted, a lot of those will still fail.
Yeah.
There's no perfect route out there,
Yeah.
I've found yet. But I think there are ones that are on more solid grounding.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that I'm attracted to, I think.
Yeah, the reason, Elliot, why I ask you specifically about God, first of all, I know that when I say God, God doesn't mean to you what it means to me. But
Yeah,
the
the
reason
word
why I was,
wonder again.
yes, yes. So
Yeah,
the
yeah.
reason why I asked you this is because you were a Christian before.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems that there was an alternative way to look at the world, and then God perhaps stopped being as important for you as it was, But I
Yeah, kind
understand.
of.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I understand when I say God. Uh, in fact, my question was, when I was asking you, it was more about God, like the concept of God, and not focusing
Oh,
too much, not focusing too much on the Christian God, because
kind of just how my conception of God may have shifted in that time
yeah,
period.
yeah, uh-huh.
Yeah. So there was definitively a point in my life where I can look back to, and
Mm,
I can say at that time I I believed as if I had a solid box. There it is. This is what God is, and it was, I found, very similar to the way that a lot of people view it today. It's this overarching force, this kind of spirit that is all around us. It's a part of everything. It guides us in a certain way. Whenever there's anything good going on, it's because the spirit wants us to have something good. Or whenever there's something traumatic or upsetting in our life, it's either a lesson or just an unfortunate consequence that will then be made, later on retroactively. It'll make sense, once we get down the line.
yeah,
Um, but at that time, it definitely wasn't even, I mean, I deconstructed it even a little right there, because at this point in my life, I can't see it that way anymore. I
mhm,
mean, I'm incapable is honestly a fair way of saying it.
yeah,
And that just comes back to the conception of whether or not we choose what we believe.
uh-huh.
If I choose what I believe, then I can say, oh yeah, I can see that now. And I wouldn't even deconstruct it when explaining it. But unfortunately, or fortunately, however you feel, I was dragged kicking and screaming down a path of reason, and that's where I am today. And honestly, that's where we all are.
Yeah,
I'm always a little upset when I hear people say, well, you can't reason somebody out of a position they weren't reasoned into. That's
mhm,
just the classic tagline. And that's
yeah,
and that's just it's a quick hand wave to say, well, these Christians, these Hindus, they don't have reason. They don't know what they're talking. It's an easy hand wave, rather than trying to simply say, no, they do have something. Whether it's a good or bad reason, whether it's sound logic, is a different discussion. But there is something in the chamber that they must be ready to fire, because otherwise they wouldn't believe this, just like you and I wouldn't.
yeah,
And that's definitely how the shift was a complete and total see, a complete and total view. And then now, from the point that honestly, I'm not sure how, if it's even possible for me to ever get back into that view. just where I am.
Yeah, definitely. Elliot, so you talked a little bit about how that concept shifted a little bit,
Mm.
and let me ask you this question. So, when you wonder about life, about existence, and everything, um, do you think that we humans in general w- are free when we wonder, or our or our wonder is actually always inside of a framework that is kind
Yeah.
of determining the way we're going to be wondering about what is around us? What do you think about that?
Yeah, this is frustrating, I think, this is the whole free will determinism, right?
Uh-huh.
I mean, this is a beast
Yeah.
of a topic, and one that I think, kind of in either direction, you can lead to some pretty bad points. If
Mhm.
we do have complete and total free will, there are some logical consequences of that are deeply upsetting. I mean, and on the flip side, if everything really is determined currently and has been for a really long time and always will be, there are also some kind of consequences of that are also deeply upsetting.
Mm, mm,
Um, I don't think currently, from all of the things that definitely that I've read, and again, believe me, I'd like to make this caveat as I should have made it earlier, but no type of expert for any of the viewers watching, absolutely no degrees or nothing like that.
same here.
But yeah, but please, we'll put this challenge out again. Tell us we're wrong. Tell us we're
Yeah, of
wrong. Come
course.
on, talk to us. But from what I understand, man, at the end of the day, we don't have a definitive answer one way or the other, but the scales seem to be tipped on the idea of determinism. And
Mm,
at the very most, what we would have is this kind of degree of freedom. And I believe this comes from Dan Dennett, definitely a wonderful thinker on this. If you want to get more on this topic, I mean, he is undeniably one of the best
mm.
places to go, and consciousness as well, which is a whole nother beast.
I'll share,
But
I'll share something in the description of the video.
yeah, I mean, again, yeah, I don't have anything to link to for me personally, so there's all kinds of wonderful knowledge out there on a bunch of different fronts. But yeah, I think what we have is one of the best ways I ever heard it described, and I'm not positive that this is correct still. So it's not something that I hold myself, but at most what we would have is the idea of the degree of freedom, which is essentially the concept of, I can do this with my shoulder, but that's about it, man. I can't take this thing and put it all the way over here or vice versa.
Yeah.
But you can see that still allows for some movability
Mm,
and what the action is and what the choice is and so forth. Um, it's a frustrating one, I think, but I do tend to say it doesn't look great for free will.
mm.
Libertarian free will, which is just the idea of we can always make any choice whatsoever with basically no outside influence.
Yeah.
That seems to me to just be gone at this
Oh,
point.
okay.
And I don't see, with all the evidence that we seem to have for uh, you know, what the brain does, and not only that, but just basic cause and effect. I mean, the idea that, where, so just an odd little thing. Did you know Macedonia, the country, had to
Yeah.
change its name? It wanted to become part of the EU, but Greece said, "We won't let you in if you call yourself Macedonia. You got to call yourself a different name because they've got a province or something called Macedonia close by." Um, eh, all of that, while maybe not 100% determined by, but it'd be quite silly to say that World War I and II didn't have something to do with those boundaries, where these countries ultimately lay themselves
Mm,
out, and
mm,
how people feel about different things in those areas. I mean, there are so many things through our past that it is blatantly obvious to say, yes, the overthrow of the Shah led to this, the death of this prince definitively led to this, that it's obvious to say, I think, that because there are some things that are clearly determined, we can't have complete and total freedom when it comes to our choices, which again, I think is a little frustrating. And I'm not saying I'm particularly excited or happy about that. It's
Yeah.
just where I seem to see the evidence stacked. So
When you mention Elliott determinism, meaning that things, I know it sounds obvious, but I want to rephrase it so that I understand it better.
absolutely.
So, like, the things that happened in our lives, plus the things that we think about those things,
Mhm.
are in a way determined by factors like society, culture, and a little bit of
Brain chemistry,
yeah,
yeah, environment, yeah. And that
environment.
again, kind of kind of frustrating, because you feel as if there is this little person right
Mm,
inside of us that's always telling us what to do and how to feel. And it feels as if that person can do whatever they want, especially in here, man. You can do
yeah.
all kinds of things, um and if this is true, definitively, demonstrably, yeah, that goes away, and that's kind of not as fun, I'll be honest, but
Yeah. So, Elliot, what do you think about something about determinism that I'm always a bit puzzled about
Mm,
is that
yeah, it is puzzling.
yeah, no, definitely,
Yeah,
definitely.
it
Hey,
is.
by the way, free will, it is the same for me.
Yeah.
It is the same. So, my question for you, Elliot, I would like to, I really want to know what you think about this. So, the fact that we can actually know that we are deterministic and we can
Mm,
actually analyze our determinism,
mhm.
doesn't it say a little bit that we are actually able to escape from it? The fact that we can actually analyze it. What do you think about that? It
It
has always
it
puzzled
feels like that. It feels like that.
me.
And
Mhm.
that's where this is where we get into the crazy world of consciousness, right? I mean, this is the brain seems to be constructed in such a way that it keeps things from us. It prevents us from seeing every molecule and every atom on the surface of a rock, because that would just be so overwhelming. We'd never be able to walk past the rock and go to work.
So
um,
you're talking about the brain in third person.
yeah, and the reason I say that is what I'm when I'm saying that, I'm simply talking about what we know in a biological sense of the human brain.
Okay,
The
okay.
human brain in a biological sense seems to be quite different from a lot of other brains out there.
Yeah.
And so when I'm saying that, really what I'm just saying is from what I understand about the biology, and from what I've heard from the actual people that are intelligent on this, unlike myself, they say this is kind of where consciousness is, and this is your prefrontal cortex,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
yada yada yada. But it does it seems to be that the brain as it is structured is something that keeps us from certain things, and this can be helpful. This can also be very painful. It also, at the same time, it seems to uh, make us want to, well, patterns, for instance. That's one of the best examples. We all want to see patterns. And the brain does that because a lot of things do fall in patterns, but
Mhm.
not everything does, right? That's the basic black swan fallacy, right? You looked at 99 swans and you said they're all white because patterns work, and then you find the one black swan and you go, well, there goes my degree. you know and so it the brain does this, and it isn't necessarily because, or at least we haven't seemingly shown that this is because, it does have the ability to work outside its own self. It
Yeah.
just it is self-conscious, and it's just structured that way. And what that means is that when somebody walks up behind us and says something to us, we know it. We
Mm.
know that they're behind us as opposed to in front of us. whether or not we even see them, you know. And sure, okay, well, we can hear it, you know, oh, they're behind us, we can feel them touching us, or their breath on our neck. Well, maybe not right now, 6 feet, but you know, this is just seemingly a property of what the brain is and what it does. And again, confusing, difficult, frustrating, all of it. But if this is where we're led, because again, we don't choose what we believe. If this is where we're led by the evidence as we continue to look at things, this is, fortunately or unfortunately, the conclusion that we have to come to. And again, it can be upsetting. I mean, I think there are a good couple of people out there that I've heard over the years that, you know, whenever a Sam Harris or a Matt Dillahunty or any one of the, you know, the real big known speakers on it talk about it, their opponent will often throw out there, you know, the concept that this thinking leads toward nihilism. And in all fairness to them, you know, it kind of does.
Yeah.
But if you stop there, that's where you stay as a nihilist. If you just leave the conclusion where it is and don't continue going further, then yeah, you might end up as a nihilist.
Yeah. So for those of us that don't know what nihilism is, or nihilism, would you tell us a little bit about that? What is that? Just in a few words.
Yeah, the basic concept that just literally nothing matters. That right here, right now, I could stand up, turn this video off, or jump out the window, or, you know, I mean, literally nothing matters. There's no purpose. Everything is pointless. And yeah, I mean, I am happy to say that is a point I reject. I am not a fan of that viewpoint. Although again, this type of thought I absolutely respect and recognize can lead people to that's where I think you go further. That's where I think you look more into stuff and you come out of that. But some do, some don't, right?
Yeah, definitely. This vision of this type of determinism, because determinism, as you said, Elliott, is such a rich word, and I might know 1% of.
I maybe got 2%. So.
Yeah. It is so rich. Many things have been written about this, both in the physical side of the conversation and the metaphysical side of it too.
Absolutely.
But talking a little bit about worldview and then life, under this umbrella of determinism, something that I again find very it's a bit strange, and I don't know if this is actually only science, or this is actually a worldview or science being filtered through the vision of a particular worldview. Because I hear you saying, and other friends, secular thinkers, talking about, you know, we are discovering this, and this is what the brain does. And then this is what we're discovering about everything, you know, laws of motion or whatever. You know, we're discovering this. And when we discover things, and we discover order, we discover, as you say, patterns, we discover all these things that we can recognize, things that we haven't created because they're givens, that we can only describe, because we truly don't know what objectively those things are. I get the sense sometimes, Elliott, that some secular thinkers tend to just get to the point of emptying the meaning of everything that they find. So since we know how things work now, therefore this doesn't mean anything. This reminds me of always a thought experiment that I've always think about. I don't know if it's good or bad. You can tell me, but I always thought, when I was myself an atheist, and I was thinking, you know, if one day we actually can quantify love, we know exactly all the chemicals, and we can quantify, we can put it together, we can do everything about it. We can make it into a pill, let's say, let's put it that way, okay? And then we can give this pill to a person and makes this person feel the love that we're talking about. We're just all glorifying. That means that, you know, now we know what actually love is, therefore it has lost its meaning. But then you said something very interesting to me, and I'm so glad that you see this, which is everything, all of this is happening within a particular framework, which is in order for us to recognize love needs to be first there. Love first was, let's say, love, I would say, it's discovered. I mean, it's inside of us, but in this sense, in the scientific sense, like we get to quantify, we're discovering something that is there, because as you said, we have this amazing capacity of seeing patterns, which, by the way, doesn't lead to actually things losing meaning. For me, it's just actually they get even more meaning, which is, oh, wow. So when we get to know all of this, also, when we are putting together all the things that be quantified and all the chemicals to put love, you actually need a mind to do all of that in order to get to that, right?
True.
I promise you, Elliott, I promise you this moment, I really don't, I'm not pushing the conversation to, therefore, God, Jesus Christ, Sermon of the Mount.
Wait, you weren't going to convert me today? I thought I was trying to deconvert you, and you were.
that definitely, I am a follower of Christ, but I was an atheist, and I get the sense of having conversations and taking conversations into steps, you know?
Yeah.
Like, for example, saying, I think there's a God for a person, doesn't lead to, and that God is the God of the Bible and Jesus Christ. Like, there are many steps in between. So I recognize that.
Absolutely.
So my question, forgive me that I have.
No, I love it, man. I'm sure you start to see me just kind of scribbling stuff. So that's what I'm doing. I'm making sure I keep up, man.
Yeah. Sorry about that, because sometimes.
No, please keep going.
Yeah. So just to contextualize all of this, so you see where the question is coming from. When we say we have discovered something, and we have been, let's put it in this radical way, we have discovered something, we know how it is ordered, and we have actually determined to get to this point of discovering this. Why do many thinkers, some actually Christians too, or religious people, get to the point of, therefore, especially secular thinkers, but well, therefore things lose meaning in them? Why do you think we get there?
I think, I mean, just specifically on that last point, I'll address first, and then I've got some other things that I think are important too to kind of delve into. But on that last point, honestly, I think it kind of goes back to just what I was talking about, is sometimes, you know, just this very logical, very basic, very 1 + 1 equaling type approach, this intense breakdown of some of these things. Yeah, it does for a lot of people. It leads them to stop right there, and that's the end of it. And I don't fault anybody for doing that on any side, on any viewpoint. You know, whether you come at it from a yes God or a no God or a multi gods, or however you come to it, it's completely understandable that that's where you end up. In this situation, honestly, who I like to think about is Penn and Teller. If you're familiar with them, they're Penn and Teller. It's Penn Jillette and Teller. So they're magicians. And his last name is Penn. If you type in Penn and Teller, I'm confident you'll find them.
Cool.
But they're amazing magicians, by the way. They're absolutely incredible. And they've been doing it for, good God, who even knows how long. But they're also very avowed atheists. And it's quite interesting to me, partly because I think kind of that exact thought that you ended with, you know, like we break it all down, and we know every little nook and cranny, and we know that the lady does this in the box, and she curls her legs up, and then they have the dummy, and then they put the sauce. I mean, we know all that, right? So there it is. And yet Penn and Teller are still coming up with new tricks, right? I mean, they know absolutely every single breakdown to a detail that none of us laymen that haven't been doing magic, even if they described it to us, even if they showed us how they built it, we still wouldn't be able to understand. They know on that level, and at the end of that trick, they'll still go backstage and try to find another and try to come up with something more interesting. And I think I think that's a pretty good, point in the sense of there is still a way to know everything and to break it down to the tiniest understanding and the logical absolutes and just what math can show us and what's in a test tube.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, that is wonderful that we can always do that. And if you stop right there, then you stop right there. And if you say that for you devoids it of meaning, then honestly, man, I don't know if I could get you to find the meaning again. But from my viewpoint, the meaning is, honestly, magic is cool.
Yeah.
I just think when somebody stands up on stage and disappears in front of me, that's just awesome. I love it. And the fact that 20 minutes later they're going to come on stage and show me the trap door, it doesn't in any way, shape, or form change it for me. And there was a point you made, actually. I circled it real quick because I thought it was interesting. You said, you recognize that we see patterns, and that doesn't make those things lose meaning for you.
Yeah.
And so I'm interested as to what the difference would be, right? If I just break something down for you, I mean, isn't it at the end of the day just a pattern, a diagram? We could do this 100 million times, right? But I thought one thing that you said, again, just the idea of we got to have the mind first. Yeah. And again, that's kind of frustrating.
Yeah.
I don't disagree. Because at the end of the day, you're always going to come back to the idea of, yeah, well, isn't your brain just registering these chemicals and electrical impulses? Yeah. And it's like, okay, so if you don't have that or you don't understand that, well, yeah, I get you. But we don't necessarily need to understand absolutely everything to show that there are certain options that at the very least aren't necessary. And that's kind of where I go back to, where just back to that, even, changing the conception of God is just, if I can go down a route to show you how a chair gets made, and I don't have to do anything that doesn't adhere to the laws of nature, then it appears at the very least I can do one thing without anything supernatural. I can make this chair, and we'll just keep seeing if there's more stuff. And I feel like we've found more, and that's just ultimately why I sit on this side.
Interesting.
But
So
I
yeah,
oh,
go ahead. No,
I was
please.
just gonna say I do. I'm always very cautious to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think there's always, wonderful things all around us. I mean, love is one of the best examples. Love, I think, is one of the best examples for a nihilist. They say, oh man, God doesn't exist, logic, math, science, and nothing matters because of that. And you go, well, love. I've had love before. We've all had love. It's a wonderful thing. I even enjoy when you're walking down the street and somebody's walking a cute puppy and the puppy licks you for a second. Does it really love me? No, probably not, but it still feels nice.
That's good. Well, Elliott, now let's keep talking about all of this. Thank you for sharing all of that. Going back a little bit, we've been talking about this, but going back to the topic of wonder, this type of wonder that is very conceptual, that is just the thinking of it and just analyzing how wonder can even be possible. That is very interesting, definitely so interesting. Now, what is interesting to me, it has always been interesting, when having conversations with great thinkers, and of course reading their books and all of that, we're talking about wonder, we're talking about these amazing concepts and analyzing existence, and we're analyzing reality. Now, that is all very important, but at the same time we need to live life. Now,
Agree.
I want to ask you about this. So after you analyze all of this, Elliot, and you spend time trying to understand the way things work, and now we can see a little bit about how your mind works in terms of analyzing things. When it comes to waking up in the morning, going back to bed, one day you feel like you feel sad, you cry, you smile. One day you're going to die. Sometimes you're hopeless, sometimes you're hopeful. Well, that's I'm define. This is who we are all. This is
Yeah.
something we have in
Yeah.
common, which is a
As
beautiful.
upsetting as it is, but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So when it comes to that, when we're feeling the pain, when we don't know what to do, when we see someone around us that we love uh, dying, and all these concepts and analysis doesn't get to the point of bringing us um, peace in our hearts,
Sure.
uh, all this wonder for you at this moment, and as a secular thinker at this moment, how do you bring the both together?
Yeah.
Will
Yeah.
you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Yeah. And you might get tired, the viewers might get tired, but it's another frustrating topic. Honestly, it's something that is difficult, and I can't say definitively I've got the perfect answer. I don't know if anybody else does. This goes down. Are you familiar with Seth Andrews, the thinking atheist?
Seth Andrews? No,
Seth Andrews. Oh yeah, yeah,
okay,
yeah. You'll want to look him up.
okay,
Yeah, he's been doing it for a long time, and he has a lot of wonderful things to say.
nice.
And he's not to say that other people aren't very compassionate.
Yeah,
They are, but Seth Andrews always there are many talks that he's done over the years that are just deeply, human to human,
oh wow,
caring about you, love your brother, whether or not the guy's in agreement on the viewpoint or not,
yeah,
and there is a purpose for that, undeniably. And the question often gets asked to a lot of these people, what do you do when, let's say your grandmother's in the hospital and she's got, moments to live, and she turns to you and she knows you're an atheist, but she just really wants you to accept God, and she won't die peacefully until that happens. What do
yeah,
you do? And everybody's always got a different answer. And a lot of times it comes down to, well, I don't know, I'd have to wait till I get there. And I think that's probably where I am too, on that specific of a topic. But in general, what I try to do is I try to do that human to human connection. I try to avoid any discussion regarding of supernatural or lack thereof. I try to always frame, with others at the very least, I try to frame it in a manner of, more along the lines of, like, look, you're currently sad, and you're sad, and boy doesn't that suck. The good news is, you won't always be sad. The other good news is a lot of us get sad, and so we know what you're feeling, and I'm happy to sit here and be sad with you. um, Everybody's different. Sometimes people want you to pat them on the back and tell them how good of a person they are. Sometimes they want you to just sit there in silence and keep your mouth shut. Sometimes they want to be completely left alone. Some
uh-huh.
people want to eat food. Some people want to drink alcohol. Some people want to do whatever. Not saying any particular one is more correct, more wrong. There may be some that are more or less healthy, but that's a different discussion. But in those times, in those moments, I try not to sit down with the person and say, like, well, hey, good news is Jesus is fake, and heaven's not real, because that's probably not the best way to go. But I tend not to indulge the other side of it. If the person says to me, I really feel close to Jesus, or Muhammad is the reason that I'm able to come through this right now, often in those distressing situations for them, I won't try to go down this route where we're sitting here really trying to throw ideas at each other and really delve deeper into stuff. It's more of just hey, brother, sister, what do you need right now? Do you need a lasagna? Do you need me to leave you alone? Like, what do you need? And that definitely,
It could be both a lasagna.
yeah. I'd say for me, it's probably both, but,
Yeah. So Elliot, let me rephrase the question because
yeah,
perhaps I didn't ask it well.
yeah,
So
maybe I misunderstood.
no, yeah. So um, my question was directed to you in particular. You
Oh, what
can
do
leave,
I do in those moments?
yeah. So
Yeah, sure.
leave God aside. Leave
Yeah,
it is you. We're very
yeah,
interested in you as a person. So
yeah,
with your worldview and everything that you think about life and the way you analyze it, when you go through these things, when you actually wonder about
absolutely.
life, when you need to put this incredible paradox of determinism, but I'm crying and it hurts.
Yeah, yeah,
Determinism, but I'm going to die.
yeah,
Determinism, but I love this person and I
yeah,
cannot live
yeah,
without her. Whatever.
yeah.
How do you bring those two together in your life when you think about the biggest questions in life?
Yeah. I guess the best way to say this is in the similar way that we all put in practice those things that are ingrained in us. It becomes something that becomes so much part of a core belief for me that I oftentimes will act things out in a way that and again, this is specifically for myself, in a way that I'm not even recognizing necessarily. But for instance, with me having the view of various things are the way they are, they're set before I got to here, before I got to this day. um this is one of those moments actually that provides me comfort. It's sad for sure that somebody dies, right? It's even sadder when you know that person, and it's the most sad when you are deeply close to them and you really did have an emotional connection with them. And for me, there is comfort in the idea that the times that I had with them that were wonderful were had, whether they were determined or not, it doesn't matter. And more wonderful times can be had in the future around those people. We can celebrate this person. We
Uh-huh.
can have a get together 5 years from now and say, our grandma was just the most freaking awesome person in the world, and thank goodness we all knew her. And hey, Bill, how is it to see you? And I recognize that those avenues will come of things without knowing what those avenues are. Again, if everything's determined, right? And the death of my grandmother, which, I mean, I don't have any wood, but I need to knock on some wood there real quick. I do love my
I
grandmother.
think I think knocking on wood is not supported by the scientific method, though.
All right. Point Pedro. All right. That's wonderful. Uh, um, but yeah, it's you know, me reaching out to you, me writing the email, you responding, all of this led to things, and sometimes it leads to things that we don't know.
Mm.
And sometimes these things are fantastic from the beginning all the way to the end.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a little bit of a not so great part in the middle. Sometimes it's just terrible. It's just
Mhm.
absolutely horrible. But I think it was Sam Harris. I think it was Sam Harris that first said this in this manner. But the idea that, really at the end of the day, both praise and blame need to be modulated. We need to accept that, the person out there doing the worst and the person out there doing the best, the praise and blame owed to both of them is probably about the same. They didn't determine where they were born. And it's a shame to think that something as so trivial as being born in, you know, '06 or '07 in Syria could be so devastating for somebody's life, and yet it is. And again, there's sadness, there's upsetting times, there's frustration, I think the worst sadness or frustration is when you just don't even know where the heck it's coming from, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you know what the sadness is, for me, it's so much easier to contend with. I say,
Yeah.
oh well, the chemicals in my brain, this reaction of the environment, I'm going to be sad for a little bit, you know, okay, fine. But when you just wake up, you know, and you're just in a bad mood, and you're like, well, does my arm feel bad? No, okay, I feel fine. It's just I don't like today, you know, for whatever reason. That sucks. But again, for me, I do find some comfort in the idea that at the end of the day, praise and blame is about level. That does hopefully lead one to being a little bit more humble, but I'll leave that up to the viewers as to whether or not they think my humility is
Yeah.
good. But yeah, I mean, when I do something fantastic, I feel great about it. But I remember that at the end of the day, a lot of the wonderful things that I have, they're not really all me. And that's okay, because all of the bad things that happen and I have, they also really aren't all me either.
Mm.
And again, that can lead one down a route that gets depressing, because you can say to yourself, well, if that's the case, then, you know, I don't need to eat today, because I'll just, you know, what's going to happen is what's going to happen, and I'm going to die anyway. And heck, I've had a good run, and this will be my last piece of pizza, and done and done, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's, again, you know, I not that this is the definitive response to nihilism, but yeah, I just think simply saying love for me does it right there. Like, why do I go downstairs and have some dinner? Because I have experienced such wonderful things in the past, food related or not. But I have had such wonderful times, and I know they can happen again, and potentially be even better. But you
Mm.
take the risk of the other side of that coin, for
Mm.
sure.
Mm. Well, Elliot, let me say two things, man. First of all, thank you very much for sharing all of this with me and with all the viewers, man. What an absolute privilege it is to have a conversations with a person that, you know, it's so open to be, you know, honest and, you know, to be challenging while at the same time being so open just to have these conversations. You are truly a gift for this show. I really mean this. No, seriously.
I appreciate that, man.
You know
Seriously.
why, Elliot? You actually said it a few times while you were explaining your terms and the way you think about things. But when I have conversations with people that think, I wouldn't say opposite, but very different from the way I think, I always like to keep in mind, and I always share this with my guests, that while we are disagreeing, we are actually all of us together. We're making an example as to how to
Yes,
disagree. You see, so
absolutely.
let's disagree, but at the same time, you can see that this disagreement can be used as an example for others in a situation like this today in the world. I value that a lot.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
with this, again, it is not, Elliot, hey, let's just disagree, let's be nice with each other. No, 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 no. I really invite challenge. I really
yeah.
do. Today's topic was about wonder, and wonder requires the person to really open and to,
Hmm.
that's why I didn't ask many questions. Of course, you said things, I think, I don't think that they're the way that you expose them, but that's where when it comes this part that I think people are going to love,
That's where we
because
have. Yeah, go
yes,
ahead. Go ahead.
so we have, you want to present it since you're going to
Do you
be,
mind?
yeah, please go ahead.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so all you wonderful viewers out there are in for a fantastic treat. This was a beautiful idea Pedro concocted when I reached out to him, and I absolutely love it. You've gotten to see Pedro interview me on an atheist wonders about life. And next week, we're going to put Pedro himself in the hot seat, and I'm going to ask him about a Christian wondering about life. So we're going to get some fantastic discussion. I
So
think.
excited.
I think we'll ultimately have to wait to see how the viewers feel. But you know what, man? I had a freaking great time, and I think that's what counts the most.
Okay. Me too, me too,
But
me too. I really do. In fact, I'll be honest, we don't have time to talk about these things, but I said that some of the things that you said, I would like to just keep talking about them.
yes,
But you
thank
said
you.
many things. I agree wholeheartedly with you,
Yeah.
man. So,
And I think that's always, deeply important to recognize that there are so many points where we almost so completely agree that it's worthless talking about some
yes,
things,
yeah,
because and yet we lose those in so many conversations.
yes.
But truly, Pedro, I mean, you absolutely said it. This conversation for me has been an absolute privilege. I am deeply, deeply excited to for this the next time to get to interview you. Man, maybe I can get you to yell or like scream at me once. That'd be kind of fun.
No, one thing you should know about me, Elliot, is next time for A Christian Wonders About Life, you're going to be interviewing me in the show. You can be as challenging as you want because of two reasons. One, I just love challenge
Yeah,
as a my personality. I've always been this way. And two, because I think it's just necessary. I wake up every day in the morning saying, is it true that
mm,
what I believe actually relates to
yeah,
reality? I don't want to go around thinking about things that they're not true, man.
yeah.
So I
So
really
you
love.
guys heard it here. You heard it here first. Next week, we're gonna make Pedro yell and scream.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do
I
it.
think it'll be wonderful, man.
Well, Elliot, thank you very much again. We care about you, my friend. And we are going to be putting for all of you all the information in the description below. And yeah, we'll let you know because next week we're going to be posting the next interview, which is a Christian Wonders About Life. And for the first time, Ask Come Wonder is going to be hosted by another person, and the normal host is going to be the interviewee. It
We
is
could
a
have gotten a
natural.
better guest host, but that's okay. We'll do with what we've got.
Elliot, please take care, my friend, and thank you very much for sharing your heart and mind with all of us. Okay?
You too, Pedro. I appreciate it. Cannot wait for the next one.
Yes. Take care, my friend.